Welcome to Using Data to Drive Instructional Decisions. This self-paced, asynchronous module is designed for district and school-level leaders who guide instructional improvement across campuses. You will move through short narrated segments and a leadership scenario at your own pace. Select Start to begin. If you need information about accessibility features, select the Accessibility Notes button before continuing. Before we start the course, here are some helpful notes about the accessibility features. Accessibility features, note number 1. For course navigation, you can use the Tab key to navigate the course and the arrow keys to access the search feature next to the menu button. Select Next to continue. Accessibility features, note number 2. For end users requiring text size adjustment. This application allows most on-screen text to be resized to meet your needs. Text that appears within images cannot be resized. Screen readers can be used to access the information contained in those images. Select Next to continue. Accessibility features, note number 3. Knowledge check navigation. Learners using a keyboard can navigate each knowledge check by moving to the main content area of the slide. When the Back to Top button is announced, select it, then use the down arrow key to move through the question and answer choices. Select the radio button for your chosen response, then select Submit to continue. Select Next to begin the course. Course purpose and learning objective. The course purpose is to use instructional data to make focused, evidence-based decisions that improve teaching and learning. The learning objective is to recognize how instructional data informs the identification of one actionable instructional adjustment. Throughout this course, you will examine how leaders interpret instructional data and translate it into clear, focused instructional decisions. Select Next to continue. Using data for instructional decision-making. Instructional leaders use data to ask instructional questions, not simply to review results. These questions help leaders understand how students are learning, not just how they performed. Leaders also select evidence that matters. Rather than reviewing every available data point, effective leaders focus on evidence that is directly connected to instruction and student learning. Finally, leaders identify focused instructional action. The goal of data use is not discussion alone, but clarity about what instructional move will most improve teaching and learning. Data should be treated as a tool for judgment and professional decision-making, not as a compliance requirement. References: Darling-Hammond et al., 2020. OECD, 2023, How Leaders Make Sense of Theta. Consider the following conversation between two instructional leaders reviewing the same theta.
Overall performance looks solid. Most students are meeting expectations.
I agree. Still, I'm curious about what the data might tell us beyond scores.
What do you think we should be paying attention to?
Maybe we should look at how students are explaining their thinking. That often reveals instructional needs that scores alone don't show. The key idea is that when performance looks stable, instructional questions help leaders look deeper. Looking beyond surface results allows leaders to notice patterns in understanding, reasoning, and academic language. This kind of curiosity supports more focused instructional decisions, even when scores appear strong.
Comprehension check 1. This activity checks understanding of the previous content. Select the correct answer from the options provided. You may attempt the question multiple times. Once the correct answer is selected, you will be able to continue. Instructional question. A district leadership team reviews assessment results showing stable proficiency across schools. What is the most effective next step?
What is actionable data? Actionable data is timely and available soon enough to influence instruction. It reaches educators while teaching and learning are still underway. Actionable data is instructionally aligned to what students are learning. It connects directly to instructional goals, daily lessons, and classroom expectations. Actionable data is specific enough to guide a clear instructional response. It helps leaders and teachers decide what instructional move to make next. As you review theta, keep this guiding question in mind: what would we do differently tomorrow? If the data does not help answer that question, it may be informative, but it is not yet actionable. References: Meyer, 2009. Sweller et al., 2011.
Comprehension check 2. This activity checks understanding of the previous content. Select the correct answer from the options provided. You may attempt the question multiple times. Once the correct answer is selected, you will be able to continue. Data source. Which data source best informs tomorrow's instruction?
How to analyze formative data. Leader lens. When analyzing formative data, the goal is not to catalog every student error. The goal is to understand what the data is telling us about instruction. Effective leaders begin by clarifying the task. What were students actually asked to do or explain? Without that clarity, data can be misleading. Next, student responses are sorted into broad categories, such as correct, partially correct, or incorrect. This step helps surface patterns rather than individual mistakes. Leaders then look for trends across responses. What do many students share? Where do explanations break down? Finally, leaders focus on trends, not perfection. One instructional adjustment, grounded in the most common need, is often more impactful than trying to address everything at once. References: Heritage, 2010.
Comprehension Check 3. This activity checks understanding of the previous content. Select the correct answer from the options provided. You may attempt the question multiple times. Once the correct answer is selected, you will be able to continue, applying a leader lens to formative data. A leadership team reviews responses to a grade-level writing task. Most students selected the correct answer, but explanations vary widely. Some students provide partial reasoning, others rely on informal language, and a few provide minimal explanation. Using the formative data analysis process, which leadership action best reflects effective data use?
Scenario Introduction. Meet Dr. Alex Martinez, Superintendent of Riverview Unified School District. Over the past year, district assessment scores have remained largely stable. On the surface, performance appears solid. However, during recent principal meetings, a consistent concern has emerged. Across grade levels and campuses, students are struggling to explain their thinking in writing, even when they select correct answers. As superintendent, you must decide how to respond. The question is not whether to act but rather how to act, based on the evidence available. What the data actually says. Dr. Martinez begins by reviewing multiple sources of instructional data. District-wide assessments show stable proficiency, suggesting students often arrive at correct answers. However, when examining open-ended responses, writing samples, and classroom work, a clear pattern appears. Students struggle to explain why their answers are correct, and academic language use varies significantly across classrooms. This evidence points to a specific instructional challenge, not a general decline in achievement. Helping Dr. Martinez. As superintendent, Dr. Martinez must now decide how to respond. One option is to mandate broad curriculum reteaching across grade levels, signaling urgency and action. Another option is to support targeted instructional strategies focused on academic language and written explanation, addressing the specific need identified in the data. Let's explore further each of these options. Option A, mandate district-wide curriculum reteaching. The outcome of this decision is instructional misalignment. In this option, district leadership mandates district-wide curriculum reteaching in response to the data. At first, this action may feel decisive. However, the outcome is instructional misalignment. When curriculum reteaching is required across all classrooms, instructional time is lost. Teachers must revisit content that many students already understand, reducing time available for targeted instruction. As instructional time is lost, teacher frustration increases. Educators may feel that the decision does not reflect what they are seeing in their classrooms or the specific needs revealed by the data. Most importantly, student explanations show little improvement. Because the instructional action was not aligned to the identified learning need, students continue to struggle with explaining their thinking, even after reteaching. This outcome highlights an important leadership lesson. When decisions prioritize urgency over evidence, instructional misalignment can occur, limiting the impact on student learning. Option B, support targeted instruction in academic language and explanation. The outcome of this decision is evidence-aligned action. In this option, leaders choose to support targeted instruction in academic language and explanation. This decision results in evidence-aligned action because the instructional response directly reflects what the data revealed about student learning needs. With focused instructional support, professional learning and coaching are aligned to strengthening academic language and opportunities for students to explain their thinking. As instruction becomes more intentional, improved academic language use is observed across classrooms. As a result, Student explanations become clearer and more precise, demonstrating stronger alignment between instruction and learning expectations. This outcome shows how evidence-aligned action leads to focused instructional support, improved academic language use, and clearer student explanations. Synthesis. This scenario demonstrates that data defines the problem before solutions are chosen. Effective instructional leadership begins with understanding what the data reveals about student learning needs, rather than selecting actions based on urgency or assumptions. The scenario also shows that focused actions outperform broad mandates. When leaders identify one targeted instructional adjustment, rather than applying system-wide responses, instructional time and effort are used more effectively. Finally, this scenario demonstrates that alignment drives instructional improvement. When instructional actions align directly to the evidence, teachers receive clearer guidance, instruction becomes more intentional, and student learning improves. Together, these points reinforce how thoughtful, evidence-informed leadership leads to stronger instructional outcomes. Key takeaways. As we close this module, let's summarize what effective instructional leadership with data looks like in practice. Strong data use does not begin with spreadsheets or dashboards. It begins with instructional questions. Questions like, what are students struggling to explain? Or where is understanding breaking down? Next, effective leaders look for patterns across multiple sources of evidence, rather than reacting to a single score or outlier. Patterns help us see systems, not symptoms. From there, the goal is not to fix everything at once. Instead, leaders identify one focused, high-leverage instructional adjustment that is most likely to improve student learning. Finally, data-informed leadership is cyclical. Leaders monitor the impact of that instructional move, gather new evidence, and adjust as needed. Remember, using data well is not about precision or perfection. It is about making thoughtful, evidence-informed decisions that move learning forward. Thank you for completing this training. Note, a complete list of references used in this course is available in the Resources section at the top right of the course interface. Click Exit to close this window.